welcome. Hi, Erin.
Hi, Ash.
And welcome to our wonderful listeners. Thank you for listening to our 17th episode of When Life Feels Messy.
Whoop, whoop. And the last episode of 2023.
Hashtag sadness. That's all I got to say.
Oh, sadness. Do tell.
Yeah, things are in the air.
Oh, I got
2024 has uncertainties about, everything, especially this podcast, but we're going to try to keep it going, right? We're
Yeah.
going to come out strong and we're going to figure out how to continue this awesome platform that we started.
Yeah, because we're podfessionals and we keep doing the damn thing and walking right up to the line, as some have told us.
Exactly.
To give you
Exactly.
good and necessary mental health content.
Correct. Yes. And I'm really excited about this episode's topic.
Ooh, you are.
Yes, because it's a yearly thing, right? It's something that occurs every year. And it also applies to like other big conversations that come up in life.
Yeah.
So today's topic is, how do we respectfully decline this conversation? 101, right?
Maybe can we put a little note here of if you just listen to Ashley say that and you immediately felt anxiety or sick to your stomach or dread and fear come up, this episode is for you. Welcome.
Welcome. Please open your ears, take a breath.
Yes, you are safe. You are right where you need to be listening to this topic.
Yes.
Among friends and others
Yes.
also struggle with this concept.
Yes. Yes. I think it was Audrey that taught us that, our supervisor, while getting our full licensure. She taught us that when we're listening to something difficult or we're holding space for something, if you are able to hold your palms open, like flip where your palm is like upside, like facing up,
Facing the ceiling.
right, facing the ceiling. And just notice what happens when you do that and you're listening to, maybe this podcast or something that is a little uncomfortable.
Oh, okay. Remind me of what was the whole meaning behind if you put your palms face up? How does that help?
So it is a physical act of you intentionally being vulnerable,
Oh,
because
okay.
the palm side of our hand is, more sensitive. Just standing or sitting, our palms don't usually rest up.
Right. Yeah.
They usually are down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we face them up, you're being intentional about, I am holding space to be open.
Oh, I like that.
And that really helps me practice not just mindfulness, but receiving what someone else is saying. So, wonderful listener, if you have that opportunity to place at least one hand, one palm up towards the ceiling, we invite you to practice that.
Yeah, as we drop some good knowledge on you in this podcast episode.
Yeah, some awesome bombs, major bombs of knowledge.
Maybe bombs, but that's okay.
We chose this topic because what would be something that could relate to this time of year, the holidays, right? A bunch of gatherings. And not only that, but during this time, we can experience a lot of anxiety or uncomfortability with family, friends, or our partners, loved ones, or our coworkers. And not really knowing what feels acceptable, safe, and comfortable to talk about, right? We may have differencing of opinions or beliefs, or maybe certain conversation topics are acceptable to others, but to some, not so much, right?
Yeah.
And how do we balance that of honoring ourselves and what we feel comfortable and not comfortable talking about, but also um, politely or respectfully communicating that versus shutting ourselves down or engaging in a conversation that we're not wanting to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know when we talked about planning this podcast, it was about like not just teaching how to politely decline conversations, but also how to empower yourself through it.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. I think too of like something that I've heard a lot, especially like from, our students are in Dallas and Houston, is that they go back home around the holidays. And sometimes home can be in a very different area than the bigger cities that they're in now. And so, like, sometimes I hear a lot of like, yeah, like I don't really relate or have the same ideas or opinions as my family does, and feeling nervous about that, or just like, I don't want these topics to get brought up and etc. And so I feel like this is something that is really common, especially given like just all the things in the world right now that are going on, and I'll let you fill in the blank of what comes up first
Oh,
for you
yeah.
when you said that. And there are a lot of differencing of opinions and beliefs, and people thinking that their way is the only way, right? And so we wanted this to be hopefully an empowering episode where you're able to just feel validated in like, if I'm not okay with this topic or this conversation, I do not have to engage in it. And that doesn't mean I have to be rude or yell at people or be, like just really standoffish or etc. But it means that I can, in a respectful way, that's still holding my boundaries and still like being authentic to myself, say,
Yes,
I'm not going to engage in certain conversation topics. And that's okay because that's my right as a human.
exactly. Yes.
So I guess with that, like maybe let's even just talk about what might be common topics or just like conversations that can really make us feel hesitant to talk about with certain people in our lives.
Yes,
Will be
for sure.
around. I think the first one is like just such a big thing, and that's money. Like anything having to do with like money, finances, debt, like
Mm-hmm.
these be such a sensitive subject for people. And I think like it's kind of a given, right? Like, and I don't know if this was your experience growing up, Ash, but like I grew up in a very like, I wouldn't say like, I guess conservative, but very restricted like household where like money was not talked about with other people. Like
Mm,
we grew up very poor, like
mm-hmm.
a lot of debt, and that was not something that we were to mention to people or bring up. And so I feel like that has definitely still continued with me, but I also like understand, right? Of like some people are really just not comfortable with talking about their financials. And it's also like, why do
Mm-hmm.
other people feel inclined to know about that, or that they have like access to people's like
Yes,
information on that, I guess, if that makes sense.
for sure. Yeah. I definitely that was sort of the vibe with me growing up of like you don't explicitly ask someone how much do you make or
Mhm.
like what are you spending your money on?
Right.
Um, but more of in the context of working.
Yeah.
So, um, if the financial money talks were about you working, then that was okay. Or about like big purchases,
Hmm.
right? There's even recently, or I can remember some moments of when certain family members were making big purchases, like a car or a house, um, or a vacation, right? Like those things were not received well. Like it was almost like, oh, like you can afford that, like very like judgy, like um if you can afford that, what then why can't you do this? Or why can't you do this for me? And it was just like a weird, judgy, like critical vibe.
Mhm.
And I think from from my own experience, I think that stems a lot of like from financial instability trauma of like
Yes.
this family or this like culture really has a lot of emphasis is on we help everyone
Mhm.
in the group.
Yeah.
And so when you have your own opinion of I don't want to talk about that or that's not relevant right now,
Yeah.
um it's almost like the defenses go up.
Yes. Oh, that is such a good point you bring up because I feel like that just like almost triggered this like whole other memory I have. But like, not only is it we can't talk about our individual like financial struggles, but we can definitely comment and talk about when uncle buys a brand new RV and a car, yet he is like 3 years back on child support, like, and so
Yeah.
do it's I think that's like one of the things too of like what you said, or maybe you didn't say it, but um when it's easier to judge and like put the spotlight on everyone else so that it's not on us kind of.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's ooh, that was gross. Okay.
Yeah. Um, one more thing on the money financial situation or a comfortable topic is also like differencing opinion of I don't even like these phrases, but good debt and bad debt of
Oh,
like, oh yeah, it's okay for you to drop thousands of dollars on college. But if you choose not to go to college and you want to have a full-time job
yeah,
or pursue something else, that's not okay.
right. Yeah.
And it's just like, this whose life is it right now?
Well, again, it's all based on what the person that has an issues with it opinion is and believing that their opinion is the only right opinion, which newsflash, it's not, right? But
Yeah.
I feel like that could be a whole separate podcast episode. So for the sake of time, I will continue on, but we'll make a note of that for future. Um, the next I think is just always been such an uncomfortable taboo thing, like relationship status.
Hmm.
Are you in a relationship? Are you single? When are you getting married? When are you having kids? Right? Like, oh, why isn't your partner here? Like, people just really think they can have all the intimate details about your relationship and ask all the questions, and it's totally okay. And it is not okay. You do not owe anyone information except for your partner or the person that you are talking to or whatever. You don't owe it to anyone else outside of that relationship. Any information about it.
Exactly.
Point blank,
Yes.
period.
Period.
Oh,
Exactly. This one makes me cringe every time I think about it. Like when I think about relationship status conversations at like large family gatherings.
mm-hmm.
Um, because I see like this dynamic with like my parents' generation and like the grandparents' generation, like those family members with like my peers, I guess, like my cousins or like siblings, um, that have totally different views of this particular thing of what you can share, want to share,
Yeah.
should share, question like quotation marks. And myself even being guilty of like having a judgment towards my older cousin who would come home for the holidays, but I would say for maybe the majority of his relationship, him and his partner have always spent it apart. Like they'll go to their own families'
Yeah.
stuff in different states. And I just thought that was so crazy. Like I was like, whoa, like you can choose to do that? Like what?
Yeah.
Like my brain was like discombobulated when like
Yeah.
that second or third Christmas came around and his partner wasn't there, and I was like, what's going on? Like, is your relationship okay? Like, and then as I got into my own relationship and learned like you can choose your own traditions and choose what's good for you and your partner, I was just so much guilt of like I had that judgment for so long, but like I feel that too. Like my partner doesn't come to my family
Mm,
um holiday stuff like on a consistent basis, and that's okay with me and that's okay with
ah,
us. um and certain older generations are like, that's so crazy and weird, like that's not right, and I'm like, chill out, like
right in quotations.
you're right, exactly, right in quotations.
Yeah.
um but even noticing like my current students experience this exact conversation topic now
Mhm.
before the semester is over, um and family members are already, so what are you going to do after graduation? Are y'all going to move in together? When
Mhm.
is a question going to get popped? Like
Yeah.
all of these things. And
Right.
they're like, I feel like I'm just following this playbook that these older generations need
Oh,
answers for.
that was a good one. Following a playbook. Ooh, okay. Snaps for that. But I mean, yeah, like
Yeah.
I think that's probably a lot of these topics, right? Is that they're picked because in someone's norm, these are okay and things that should be checked off, talked about, made sure everything is like good there. And it's not congruent with like people with their own unique experiences and trauma
Yeah.
and mental health things. But intriguing. I like that idea of like it's a play. I mean, I don't like it, but like I like the verbiage around like it's
Yeah.
a book. Like, okay.
Hmm.
Um, next one, health issues. I I think for me, this is something that I still feel very taboo about, like ever really talking about or asking questions on, even if it's people that I'm really close with, like my family and friends. I'm still like, I almost like overthink it of like, oh, I don't want to ask about it because like, what if it's not something that they want to talk about, right? Or like, I don't want to bring it up, but then like, what if they want me to bring it up, right? And I feel like there's a big difference in that versus someone that's just like, doesn't care at all about
Yeah.
sensitivity around this topic or even just like makes comments or jokes that could really be like harmful. Like thinking about, I remember like a family member before joking about someone having cancer and they had just found out that they found like had like a lump in their breast. And it was like
No.
such a horrible like joke
Ugh.
and like the worst timing, of course. And then that person was obviously upset and crying and had a breakdown because like
Yeah.
just not something that should have been joked about at around the table. But
Absolutely
I,
not.
I think again, like people just like really feel privy to people's like,
Hmm.
and sometimes I think too, like, don't get me wrong, like I don't think it's always with malice intention. I think some people genuinely are like want to know because they're worried. It's just the delivery and the way that you go about it and it's communicated is totally wrong. And that could be a whole thing of like
Right.
you weren't taught how to effectively communicate or talk to people about their things, which is not an excuse because we all need to learn and grow. But also too, like some people genuinely think and think that they're coming at it with good intentions, and the impact is horrible and really damaging.
Yes, exactly.
Next is
So
work related stress. So I did a big sigh and I didn't mean it like that, but also like
and I
was
made a cringe face.
you did. You made like a nose scrunchy face. Not to say that this is relevant for our current job. We love our current job. We are very happy to be in this position. But I think just like everyone at some point has just had like that job that they don't want to answer questions about from people. They don't want
Hmm.
to talk about like all the like the stress of what they're doing, or maybe like they are changing jobs or they lost a job, right? Or there's a big conflict there. Like, or maybe, I mean, something I hear kind of come up a lot too is like they work in a career or job that they like, but their family isn't proud of or didn't want them to go into. And so they're
Ooh.
met with like comments all the time about like, you're not doing enough, or like X, Y, and Z, or like, oh, you should have been a doctor, right? Versus accountant. And it's like, that can really be stressful in
Yep.
terms of like, I know they're gonna bring this up, right? And I don't want to talk about that.
Mhm.
But yeah, work related stress. Always something interesting.
Literally, yes.
Oh, the next one is family conflicts. And I think this is just, doesn't really have to have anything said around it, I
I
think.
know, literally.
And this is probably one of the most common ones that comes up, is because it's, I don't know what it is, but like sometimes gathering with your family seems to be the perfect breeding ground to talk about issues in the family, or like conflicts, or talk about other family members. And it's
Yeah,
like, I don't understand. Like, what was why this time? Like, why are we doing this like a group intervention thing right now?
exactly. Yes. Also that it's bringing up like the stress around bringing everyone together
Oh, yeah.
as
Yep.
a family conflict.
Mm.
Almost like us gathering together is such an inconvenience and stress.
Oh, yeah.
Like I've seen different moments of like clients share that their family conflicts often revolve around like the stress of getting together, or like and two people have a conflict and then everyone gets involved,
Mm,
or everyone has an opinion about it,
yeah.
and it's not their issue to resolve, it's between the two people. um yeah.
Yeah. Family dynamics are always fun. Always fun. The next one is political or controversial topics. Again,
Actual ill.
I think given the state of the world right now, this one might be something that is a fear or worry about someone
Hmm.
bringing up at the holidays. And maybe you experienced that if you celebrated Thanksgiving with anyone, because there are a lot of divides right now on what's right, what's wrong, who's right and wrong, all the differing religious beliefs and ideas that are being thrown out and shoved down people's throats right now.
Yeah,
So validate that probably might be something that someone's going to comment on in some shape or capacity right now, because I feel like it's just flooding our news outlets and social media in general, unfortunately.
exactly.
Personal struggles.
Mm.
I don't know why this one seems like people would like feel entitled to bring up, because I get it literally says personal struggles.
Hmm.
Yet there are definitely people who feel very inclined or not worried at all about calling you out on things that you might struggle with, and maybe you opened up to them about something, like such as like addiction, or if you're experiencing some mental health stuff, or like went through something traumatic or difficult life things. So validate that you might be concerned that someone might try to bring that up, and almost like use that as a weapon against you in a topic
Hmm.
around the holidays and these gatherings, which really just sucks. I think it sucks that anyone would feel like able to bring that up. And also, it's something I hear so common, especially around mental health. Like, I've
Oh yeah.
so many students that are like, yeah, like I made the mistake of telling my family that am experiencing anxiety, or I'm struggling with some depressive symptoms. And now every time they call me or every time I see them, they bring it up or they use
Yeah.
it against me. And it's like, like it it makes me so frustrated as like a therapist.
Oh,
But
yeah.
too, it's like I've been there, right? Like I've been on the other side of that where it's been just brought up casually in conversation, and then you have people that you would not feel comfortable talking about this with, but then they're like, "Oh my gosh, what's going on?" Like, "What? You're struggling with this?" And it's like, "Yeah, and I would have told you if I wanted you to know." But anyway, that's
Exactly.
other
Like,
thing.
or if you share something with someone and then someone that you didn't even know or didn't want to know brings it up
Oh,
to you, and
yes.
you're like, first of all, I didn't want you to know that. Why did that person tell you?
Yes. Oh, the ultimate betrayal of trust. True. Like then you found out that you were the hot topic of the rumor mill in the family, and then you're like,
Exactly.
well, I know how you found that out. Turn to said person that I trusted at one point.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then it'll probably be met with defensiveness, right? Of like, oh, well, like we were just worried about you, and I was just telling them so to see if they had any ideas of how to help you, etc. Like, no, that's not a good excuse.
Mm-mm.
And if anyone gives you that excuse, like call them out. That's not a good excuse.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm gonna move on from that one because getting debated. Grief and loss, obviously the holidays and anything around like birthdays, anniversaries of any kind of loss or grief can just be a really terrible and difficult time for people. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so although like some families might feel really comfortable about like almost like having like celebrations of life or having like open conversations to reminisce on people that they lost, others might not be open to that, and that needs to be something that's respected but isn't always respected. uh,
Mm-mm.
and also I think that just goes into of everyone grieves differently, and
Correct.
I think we have a culture of, and I read this somewhere and I can't remember, or maybe I watched it. I think I watched a TikTok. Don't judge me for that. Um, but they were saying like you get to like grieve, right, for like a short amount of time, right? Could be a few months, could be up to a year. And then after that, the people in your life expect you to get over it, right? Or move on. And it's like, have we ever like questioned why people want you to quote unquote move on? And it's because like they don't know how to deal with that anymore.
Correct.
Like they don't know how to hold space for that. They're uncomfortable. So then they're going to make you feel like, right, like kind of a problem in that you need to move on rather than they don't know how to be there for you and hold space for you to grieve, no matter how long it takes, which we know grief lasts forever. It's just your capacity to hold that gets bigger and bigger and it doesn't feel as heavy. And I think that that's, something that can come up too is like if you still struggle with something or you don't want to talk about it or you don't feel like even just like okay with hearing someone's name, right, that you lost, like people might try to have really negative comments or make you feel guilty for that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's very telling about their capacity for it and their own struggle with it versus your own.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. Especially when that person that may feel uncomfortable or that's saying like dismissive comments about how you're feeling or your approach to your own grief, they don't tend to their trauma of losing someone.
That's true.
Like, oh, I got through my grief of losing this person this way, so it should work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Or why haven't you tried this?
Yeah. If
Right.
anyone ever tells you something and it has the word should in it, automatically just like throw that in the garbage because
Hmm.
you don't need that energy right now.
Yeah. No.
Ugh.
Unless it's, I should cuddle this cat. It's so cute.
I should give constant cuddles to the fur babies. Yes. Or I should take care of myself. I will allow that one.
I like that one.
But that's the only ones. Oh, okay, moving on, I promise. We kind of touched on this, but future plans or fertility issues, right? So like whether or not you want to start a family, whether or not you want to have children, whether or not you have fertility issues, which can we just talk about, and this could be a whole other podcast episode, the high rate of fertility issues right now for women and men in the world, and it is still being like I just feel like it's still one, it's a taboo thing, but two, I still feel like there's just so much judgment around that right now.
Mm-hmm.
You struggle with fertility issues, which is just disgusting. Of like, instead of showing like human decency and compassion and kindness, like you literally have judgment or look at people differently. Like that's a whole other thing. But I have been in part of conversations and been at the receiving end of people feeling like they can bring up questions about like when I would start a family, like do I want to being in a like woman relationship, like questions around like, oh, who's going to carry the baby, like who, like are you going to carry each other's baby, like what are you going to do? And it's just like why do you feel like you get to ask those questions and just assume that
Yeah.
that's one, what we would want to do, and two, like that we would want to have children, and that
Right.
would be starting a family versus us being a family with our fur
Correct.
babies.
Correct. Right. Or that you even want to have this conversation in the first place.
Right, like oh, like I don't know, maybe that's just like too on par with like current life for me, but
Mhm.
that one just really grinds my gears
For
because
sure.
there's, especially when I see people that are really struggling with fertility and like would literally do anything to be able to get pregnant or have like their own biological child, and they just like are met with like heartache after heartache, like struggle after struggle with it, and then people still ask insensitive questions. Oh, there is a special place for you. Don't do
Yeah,
that. Do not do that to people. You do not know what people are going through. Again, that's a whole other podcast episode, but
for sure.
moving on from that, last one, weight or body image.
Ah,
I don't want to talk about this one.
I literally shook.
Oh, all I have to say is people feel way too entitled to comment on anyone's weight or body image.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to say. You are way too entitled. And if you hear me saying this and you feel defensive, you are part of the problem.
Period.
Worry about yourself. Worry
Period.
about yourself. Do not be making comments to anyone else about their own. And that's it. That's all I'm going to say. And I'm moving on.
Period. Love it.
And I know like we just went through some of these topics, and obviously there are many, many more topics that you can like think about, but it would take us forever to try to make a comprehensive list around that. But
Mm-hmm.
it is totally okay for you to feel hesitant or not willing to talk about any aspect of your life or yourself or your entire being with anyone, because they are not you, and that is your right and your choice. And I'm going to hop off my soapbox and I'm going to let you speak now, Ash, because I need to press after that.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing that with such conviction and like strength because people need to know and they need to know their inner power is there and we could tap into it,
Yes.
right? Even in these conversations or topics that we don't want to have conversations with.
Yes.
So we talked about like the areas that are hesitant to talk about, but let's pivot a little bit to why do others insist on talking about things that make others uncomfortable?
Oh, do tell.
Okay. So, short answer, there's a lot of reasons. Okay. We kind of touched on them a little bit. But understanding these motivations can provide some insight not only into their behavior, but also how you can start to hold them accountable.
Yes.
So, for starters, let's talk about lack of awareness. as in that person only understands their worldview,
Mhm.
right? Their individual life. So some people may not be aware that a particular topic makes others uncomfortable.
Right.
We can't assume people are mind readers. Absolutely not. They might assume that everyone is comfortable discussing relationship status, right? Or how much you make, or what you spend on your electricity bill, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I think that it kind of ties in of what we were saying earlier about someone's norm and what they're comfortable with. They attribute to, well, I feel this, so everyone else should feel this, or everyone else does feel this,
Mm-hmm.
which, in my opinion, just shows a lack of emotional maturity and awareness, of course. And it's like, okay, like we can hold that, and at the same time, like you are accountable for learning and growing in those areas versus being like, well, this is my worldview or my perspective. And so, like, that's the only one I care about. And everyone else should just, like, do that as well.
Right. Oh, so glad you touched on that because that is one of the items we got here of social norms and expectations. Um, we are social creatures.
Yep.
We are humans that crave this social connection, right? We've developed cultural norms, expectations, and those either consciously or unconsciously play a role
Mm-hmm.
in how we interact with each other and ourselves. So, again, some people in cultures think it's okay to talk about your fertility issues or your timeline of when you're going to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Or they have these expectations that you're a woman, so you should go into these fields,
Mm-hmm.
or you should find a partner with these qualities,
Yeah.
or avoid these types of people or these settings. And when you're balancing yourself within this culture, or I know in the United States, like this independence culture, like we should do everything on our own. It's a hard balance,
Mm-hmm.
especially when we want to set boundaries and say, no, we're not talking about that.
Right.
So curiosity, as we're talking about like natural human traits, curiosity is one of them. I don't know where that phrase started, curiosity kill the cat, but curiosity can make others uncomfortable. As in, you're really invested and interested in learning, not just from like a judgmental perspective or like a critical, like I want to analyze everything that you're doing, but just like I'm really interested and curious, like how life has been going for you, right?
Mm.
And that may come across as really discomforting to people
Yeah.
who don't want to practice that vulnerability with
Mhm.
someone they only see twice a year. Like,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Well, I think, that's too of like, although that might be something that you're coming at it of like, oh, like, I care about this person, I want to know how they are. The other person might not view you as someone that's safe or someone that they would want to talk about certain topics with.
Mm-hmm.
And just because you're curious doesn't mean that you're privy to that information.
Mm-hmm. So unintentional insensitivity is another factor that influences people to feel like they're privy to conversations or information.
Mm.
Like they I love how you phrased it earlier of a lack of emotional um what did you say? Intelligence?
I said
Immaturity.
maturity, but
Maturity.
I think both of those though would be relevant for that.
Yeah. So unintentional insensitivity means I don't have the intention of being insensitive or mean, but they lack maybe those social cues or
Mm,
that social experience to have someone say, this is uncomfortable for me, I don't want to talk about it, or maybe divert or pivot the conversation.
mhm,
So
mm,
as a result, you got these two different communication styles and lack of social awareness coming up, and it can cause a big awkward moment or maybe even a panic attack,
yeah.
right? Of like, I need to excuse myself right now,
Mhm.
or someone shutting down. Um, so it's really important with this one to check in with yourself of what are those areas I feel comfortable talking about and sharing, and what are
Yeah.
those areas I don't,
Mhm.
or what is some feedback I got from someone when I asked a question or brought up a topic.
Yeah.
Next is a desire for connection. As we mentioned earlier, we're social beings. We want to, gratify that sense of belonging. Our mirror neurons are very strong. We want to connect.
Yeah.
However, in some cases, individuals may bring up personal or sensitive topics because it they believe it will deepen their connection.
Mhm.
I can say I definitely have felt guilty of this one, right? Like me wanting to talk about a deep connection, but the other person is not ready.
Mhm. Mhm.
They might see it as a way of fostering intimacy, but the other person may see it as, whoa, I don't know if you're safe to do this. I was not like, I'm blindsided right now. I don't want to go there.
Mm,
Or
mhm.
we're literally about to go on this family photo shoot and I don't want to have those feelings on my face when I take a photo.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
Next is social awkwardness. So people who struggle with social skills or have a tendency to be socially awkward may inadvertently broach uncomfortable topics without realizing it. Almost like for me, this is bringing up that like humor or like sense of like trying to make light of a situation when it's really a serious topic and you shouldn't be joking about it.
Right. Yeah.
Um, or maybe save that topic for a private conversation versus everyone at the table,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, time and place, right?
Exactly. And unfortunately, sometimes that isn't effectively taught to people.
Right. Yeah. Yep, because if
Mm-hmm.
you also struggle with that, then
Mm-hmm.
why?
So we touched on this one a little bit earlier, difference in communication styles.
Mhm.
So we may have some people we're close to or that we're around that voice or express very direct communication, meaning they're going to say everything that's on their mind exactly how it is in their mind.
Yeah.
Or we may have someone on the opposite end of that is overthinking how to best structure this sentence to get across that they're just thankful
Mm,
or to share their opinion on something. They want to make sure they don't hurt anyone's feelings. And that impacts how they communicate.
very true.
Um, Another is attention seeking behavior. Yikes. Uh, so people who crave attention may intentionally bring up
Mhm.
controversial or uncomfortable topics to generate a reaction or steer the conversation towards themselves. This is coming to mind like seeing like different skits and shows or movies of like people that like to stir the pot and like to like see the other's reaction. And
Mhm.
I'm like, ew,
Mhm. Mm.
like all for a joke or for some laughs. Like, no.
Yeah, it's and it's such a like thing because like I I think from like our perspective as a therapist, when I see attention seeking behavior, like I'm already like pathologizing, like, ooh, like, so can kind of see probably like what the childhood was like, right? Or like what the
Oh
lacking
yeah.
of, right? But also too, like it is never okay for you to literally try to quote unquote stir the pot, right? Like that is not something that is appropriate
Mhm.
or emotionally mature or healthy for us
Yeah.
to do. Um,
It's
and it just gives like, I don't know, I keep thinking of like Did Us the Menace vibes.
yeah, yeah. Um, for me, it's bringing up the dynamics of siblings.
Oh,
Um, Either siblings on their own or siblings with their partners, like each individual with their partners, and um, like almost comparing behaviors as, oh, I'm doing this or I'm doing this. What about you?
oh yeah, yeah,
Or so and so doesn't have this yet,
yeah,
or throwing like those backhanded jokes or comments of, oh, you did had that, but what ended up happening? You lost it, right? Or blank, blank, blank happened to you.
right,
And
right.
I'm like, how does that, how do you feel better saying that? Like after saying that?
Because I get to deflect away from their stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I
that
know, so gross.
another good podcast episode.
All right, so next, lack of empathy. Some individuals may lack empathy or struggle to understand how their words may impact others emotionally. So it just it's bringing me back to this topic too of like, there's no thought or pause for the other person's experience
Mm-hmm.
or emotions.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
prioritize their desire to discuss a topic over any potential discomfort it may cause. Actual ill.
Difficult when there are people like that present. And, you know, there's a lot of different like reasons why that can be present and also doesn't take away from the fact of how uncomfortable and harmful a lack of empathy can be on people that are on the
Mm-hmm.
unreceiving end of it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And lastly, for some individuals, talking about uncomfortable topics may serve as a coping mechanism, either to avoid, deflect. They may use this conversation to process their own feelings
Mm-hmm.
about whatever it is, or to seek reassurance that they aren't doing anything bad or they're on the right track,
Yeah.
or maybe to figure out what are my values? What are my morals? But
Mm-hmm.
in the process, could make someone second guess their own stuff.
Yep. Yeah.
Actual ill.
Yeah.
So it's important to know that not everyone who talks about uncomfortable toxic topics has malicious intent,
Mm-hmm.
right? There are some like what we discussed here, like genuine, real things that individuals experience. And, like I mentioned earlier, I've been guilty of too.
Mm-hmm. No, we all have.
And sometimes it's a matter of differing communication styles, awareness levels, or social skills. Like definitely the person I was 10 years ago
Mm-hmm.
did not have the social awareness I have now.
Right.
So if you find yourself in a situation where someone is consistently making you uncomfortable, it's okay to assert your boundaries and communicate your preferences. And we're about to talk about how to do that. So just hold on, bust out your notepad.
Yes.
Open and honest communication can often help in finding a middle ground that respects everyone's comfort levels, um, and also honors yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think
Meaning, go ahead.
I think that needs to be like, I don't want to say like the root, but like a foundational thing is
Yes,
like that sense of holding like respect for ourselves and like our well-being like as a priority too, right? And it doesn't have to mean like we get to a like a narcissistic level. It's like I'm the only person that matters, right? Like, or I'm always right. But it's like saying like, yeah, like my well-being is important, right? And I don't
correct.
engage or be a victim to someone's like rude behavior or etc. just because like I feel like I owe it to them or I feel like uncomfortable about standing up for myself.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yes.
But I guess that's a good segue.
Yes. Good segue.
So we talked a lot about like common topics that can really feel uncomfortable for people, and also like some reasons why people might feel privy to bring up uncomfortable topics or to continue trying to have those conversations. So now let's actually get into like how do we go about respectfully and politely, right, declining these conversations, which is your right as a human. So the first thing is think about like when someone tries to bring up a topic or engage us in a conversation is we can start by expressing gratitude for like the invitation of the conversation or the attempt on their part to engage us in that. This is kind of like I think what was it like the sandwich method of like positive, negative, positive, right? Like
Yes.
and so like this kind of like sets a good positive respectful tone, and like some examples of this is like thank you so much for like wanting to chat about that, like I really appreciate it, right? Like you can start off like in a respectful way, but we're doing that. But the next thing is like we need to be honest and direct with them, right? So we don't just say like thank you and then just continue to let them talk about it if we don't want to talk about it, right? Like we don't need to go into great detail, right, about like what exactly this topic means to us or how it impacts us, but we need to be straightforward because that's how we're going to be effective and show someone like, okay, like this is a boundary for us, right? Like that we're going to be like firm on. You can mention maybe like you're feeling a bit overwhelmed or maybe you need some time alone, right? If this is a conversation that just feels like really heavy. So some examples of this is like, I hope you understand, but I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now and really could use some time for myself, right? You can also offer an alternative. So maybe like right now doesn't feel like a good time to talk about this, but if it feels like at another time you would want to, you can suggest that, right? Like, and this might be something of like, hey, like, I'm not feeling really comfortable talking about this with like the whole family, but like would love to talk to you privately about it at a certain, another time when we can do that. Um, you can also use humor for it. So like, I mean, I feel like I do that all the time. Light humor can diffuse some tension. We know that, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it can be used as like a defense coping mechanism, which is a whole different thing. But it can make like your decline for the conversation feel like more lighthearted and not as like attack or defensive, right? So like an example could be like, I wish I could chat right now, but I'm in serious need of some me time, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
catch up later. So like really kind of having that light tone to it that's not like really like aggressive and rude about it. Set boundaries. How many times do we talk about this, right? Like you can politely let the person know that you have personal boundaries, especially like at family functions or around the holidays or whatever, and that you hope they understand. An example of this could be, I hope you don't mind, but I'm trying to set some personal boundaries right now. And you can also express your current state, right? Like if you're not feeling like in the best mood or you're dealing with stress, and it's someone that like you would be okay with letting them know about that, right? Like you can tell them like, hey, like I appreciate this chat, but like I'm dealing with a lot of stress and at the moment I'm not in the headspace to talk about this. Like can we connect later? So
Exactly.
those are some like polite and respectful ways to decline the conversation. Now,
So
what? Yeah,
question, Erin.
yeah.
What if someone keeps insisting after you politely decline?
That's when the hammer gets brought down. No, I'm just kidding. I mean,
Yes.
I think you're gonna do great at talking about this, but
Yes.
I think in a general sense is this is when it's gonna be really important for you to remember that your comfortability, your like feeling of well-being and safety and security is a priority here.
Correct. Yes. Another part of that foundation is that like solid sense of you that can show up for you, like that protector part of you
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that doesn't play no games,
Yeah.
that is like, hold on, we put in our mom jeans on,
Yes.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So first, stay calm. Check in with your emotions. Check in with how your body feels. Does your body start to feel like super tight? Like, are you getting hot? Like, how are you feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Check in and practice some deep breaths. Maybe move your body. Maybe think of what color the sense of calm can be. And practice not reacting from a place of like hurt, anger,
Yeah.
those things, but really try to take in that moment to invoke the pause button.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Next is be firm and assertive.
Yeah.
You can practice clearly expressing or re expressing your boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
letting them know that you're not comfortable discussing certain topics. An example would be again, I appreciate your interests, but as I stated previously, I prefer not to discuss that topic. I'm open to talk about something else, or I can remove myself from this conversation.
Yeah. And can we just say, being firm and assertive does not mean that you're being rude and aggressive.
Correct.
And I feel like those are always used interchangeably, especially by someone who gets defensive at your
Mm-hmm.
and that is not the case. Like being firm and assertive is you standing up for yourself.
Exactly. I think that that's very difficult to not internalize when we've grown up internalizing like setting boundaries is bad or
Yeah.
setting up for ourselves is being disrespectful or whatever. But in reality, you're taking care of yourself
Yeah.
and you have the power to do that.
Yep.
Next is deflect or change the subject. So you have the power to redirect the conversation to a different, more neutral topic. This can help shift the focus away from what you don't want to talk about,
Yeah.
meaning that other person doesn't have full control over what you're talking about. You
Mm-hmm.
both are in this conversation. So, an example would be I'd rather not get into that right now. Have you tried any new hobbies lately?
Yeah.
Or, have you tried this restaurant out? Or what do you think about like this new show?
Do you want to see a picture of my cats? Like,
Oh, I love that redirect.
and if they say no, then immediately walk away. No, I'm just kidding. But
They
not
say no, continue to show them.
really.
Just kidding. Don't do that.
They say no, then the next one is accurate.
Yeah. hmm The next one is remove yourself from the situation. Okay. If this person persists, consider excusing yourself from the conversation, leaving the situation. An example would be I need some time alone right now. Let's catch up later when we can talk about something else.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I need some time alone right now. I'm going to go take a walk, or I'm going to go get me a Starbucks, or I'm going to go pet my cat. Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
removing yourself from the combo. Next is establishing personal privacy. Again, this might feel like foreign to your system
Mm-hmm.
because we're not used to doing that. If we've grown up with we need to share everything or feeling judged.
Yeah.
And so we run things by people, but you can politely and firmly communicate that certain topics are private and you prefer to keep them that way. Meaning, if someone starts to ask about your relationship or your partner,
Yeah.
right? I
Exactly.
appreciate your curiosity. I appreciate that you want to learn more about me, but I like to keep some aspects of my life private.
Mm-hmm.
And those are topics that stay between me and my partner, or I don't share that with people.
Yeah.
So let's focus on other things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But let's say that I politely decline the conversation and set my firm boundaries, and then someone gets defensive. Oh,
Uh-huh.
you
Uh-huh.
know,
Which
defenses or rude.
are rude. And this is a common response with people
Mm-hmm.
that do not know how to respect or set their own boundaries. So keep that in mind, right? If someone is
Mm-hmm.
reaction, it says a lot more about them than it does you.
Ooh, yes. So glad you said that. Their reaction says so much more about them
Mm-hmm.
and how they show up
Yeah.
and what they need to work on.
Right.
So let's say that happens, right? They get defensive and they're becoming rude or mean.
Mm-hmm.
Continue to stay calm and grounded. Responding with your anger and defensiveness may escalate the situation. I know that even personally, that's the immediate automatic reaction is Ash gonna pull out her claws and we gonna look at you crazy.
Yeah. No cap. She not lying.
Aaron's like, I know, I seen it in action.
It's
But
scary.
we gonna pause on that, meaning breathe, right? Check how our body feels. For me, my body feels so tight, especially my arms, they get so tight. And stay calm and grounded.
Yeah.
For me, what really helps is noticing what the physical reactions are, thinking of like, what color is this anger? What color is this judgment? And thinking of the opposite of what that color would be.
I like that. What
Secondly, go ahead.
what color is yours?
So for me, it's like a deep, dark red.
Oh, like your nails?
Yeah, like my nails.
Okay.
And the opposite of that would be not a dark blue, but more of like a darker looking blue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Blue is my peaceful color. I love blue.
Yeah. As you're wearing all blue and the curtains behind you are blue. Even your
Yeah.
nails are blue. But your nails are red. So I'm like, are these mood shifting nails? Like,
These are my holiday nails.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Secondly, we're going to choose our words carefully. Practice responding with assertiveness. When you feel assertive, what do you notice? Like, do your shoulders go back?
Mm-hmm.
Like, does your throat clear out? Do you say your words more patiently?
Mm-hmm. Enunciate.
Rather, yes, enunciate, right? Is the anxiety wanting to come on in
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and make you talk faster?
Yeah.
We gonna pause on that. So respond with assertiveness
Yes.
rather than aggression. Choose your words that express your feelings and perspective without escalating the conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, like in some cultures, even just saying how you're feeling or saying what's going on can be an act of disrespect or disobedience. But you don't have to subscribe to that
Very
to
true.
protect yourself. If applicable, reassure the person that it's not a reflection of your feelings towards them, but rather a choice based on your comfort level.
Mm-hmm.
Your choices matter and are a priority.
Yes. And I put if applicable because if it is a reflection of your feelings towards them, by all means, let them know.
Let them know. Exactly.
Be like this conversation. I don't want to talk to you.
Exactly.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. Set expectations and make it clear that you have the right to set boundaries in conversations. And you can hope that they can respect that, but let's not make that like a goal. The goal is that you know and can stand firm within yourself that this is your choice and you have every right to make that choice and set this boundary.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to them
Mm-hmm.
on
Yep.
how they take that. It's up to them on how they receive that.
Exactly.
You don't have control over their feelings.
Yep. Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
actual facts.
No cap.
So, an example of that would be I believe everyone has topics they rather not discuss. I hope you can respect my choice to not talk about X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, know when to disengage. If the other person is not receptive to having this constructive conversation, or if it becomes clear that the issue is more about their perception or them being right or them getting this reaction out of you rather than your actions,
Mm-hmm.
consider disengaging to protect your well-being.
Yeah.
And that could result in you coming to terms with they're not going to hear you.
Yeah.
I know some people really need that other person to know what they know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really need my mom to know this. And I can't have peace if she doesn't know this.
Mm.
You don't have any control
Yeah. Yeah.
of her knowing, holding space for that, taking that in.
Mm-hmm.
You only have control over how you communicate that.
Yeah. But not how it's one, reciprocated, but two, like take it in.
Uh-huh. You have no control over whether or not she understands that.
Mm.
That's just an example.
Yeah.
And that can come with its own feelings on its own.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. But I think too of something that's important as we like start to wrap up this podcast is that when we think about setting boundaries or being firm and assertive with others or sharing like this is something I'm not comfortable with or putting that boundary, something very common that comes up is the feeling of guilt or that I'm in the wrong or I'm doing something bad. And we acknowledge that that's something that comes up. And I think
Mm-hmm.
both can attest that we've been on the side of feeling that before. But we need to talk about ways that you can help remind yourself that your decision not to talk about certain things doesn't make you a problem. The problem is that other people aren't respecting those boundaries or feel like they have more of a priority or can dictate what you talk about, right?
Yeah. Or when you talk about them.
When you talk about it, or that they can get defensive and rude to you for not wanting to disrespect your own boundaries and comfort. And so some strategies that we hope that you can take away from this is to first, like, we have to, above anything else, validate our own feelings. We have to acknowledge and accept them for what they are without any feelings of judgment, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to judge our feelings on, like, oh, I'm not comfortable talking about this, right? Or X, Y, and Z, then we are just going to really struggle with setting boundaries around when people bring up these conversations, and most likely we'll just like sit there right, and listen or force ourselves to partake in it when it doesn't feel like good or authentic for us, right? So we also need to really validate that it is a like totally okay, normal, healthy thing for me to have boundaries and that my feelings around X, Y, and Z are valid, right? Even if
Mhm.
it's not like the same for the person that's trying to bring up this conversation, that doesn't matter, right? Their
Mhm.
own perspective, feelings, thoughts on things does not succeed. What is the word? Is not more important than ours. We also need to
Right.
understand our limits, right? Like everyone has different comfort levels with things, and areas of our life that we prefer to keep private for our own reasons, right? And we don't have to explain that to anyone. As long as we are comfortable and know what's up for us, that's all that matters, right? So we need to be sure that we are able to understand, respect our own limits, and to recognize that it's okay that I might feel different about talking about my sex life versus Uncle Joe over here, who's like open book about everything, right?
Correct. Yeah.
We also need to prioritize our self care, which we know self care, cliche word, right? But remember, like when we take care of our own well being, like the intense effects of that for us is like something that is priceless essentially, right? And so vital. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to make sure that we are prioritizing our own well-being. And if discussing certain topics around anything, right? Like feel like it is uncomfortable or it causes us stress, we are totally okay and validated to prioritize our own mental and emotional health around that and put up boundaries and not partake in that. We also need to communicate assertively. As we've been saying, assertive is not aggressive, right? So reminding ourselves that asserting our boundaries is a healthy thing and it's necessary, especially for maintaining our well-being. So we need to be able to communicate like what our preferences are in an assertive way, but respectful, right? Like, and those can be done together. They can exist on the same plane. Um, Even if it feels like people like are gonna tell you like, oh my god, you're being mean because you're being assertive. Like, actually, you just don't like that I'm setting a boundary. We also need to use affirmations, right? To enforce this healthy mindset for us that I have a right to set my boundaries and prioritize my comfort. We have to practice like telling ourselves this, right? Like, especially if this is something that you were not taught or wasn't something ingrained in you from a young age. This is something that we almost have to like rewire our brain. So we have to practice like starting now before we get into the next holiday season or the family function or whatever, is we have to start utilizing these affirmations to show ourselves and affirm that we have every right to set boundaries with other people. Reflect on your values, right? Like what matters most to you, and recognizing that respecting our boundaries aligns with our values and self-respect, right? Like they have to like coincide and go together. We also need to create empowering statements, and this reminds us of our autonomy, and this reminds us of our right to make choices about what we discuss, which might feel like kind of like taboo sometimes. But an example of this is I have the right to decide what I share, and that doesn't make me a problem if I choose not to share about certain things. We also can focus on positive interactions, right? So shifting our focus to what are the aspects of maybe the holiday gatherings that I really enjoy, right? Like maybe there are many ways that I like to connect with others in a way that's very comfortable for me, right? And like focusing on like how can I be able to just engage in those things and then set boundaries on things that maybe I'm not as comfortable with. Also practicing self-compassion. So we have to be really kind to ourselves and understand that it is a very okay thing to prioritize my comfort, and that we deserve to participate in conversations that make us feel at ease and comfortable. versus like feeling like we have to punish ourselves all the time. That is like the opposite of practicing self-compassion. And then last one is seeking support. So if you find it really challenging to maintain, a positive mindset, talking to friends, family, or a support network that really understands and respects your boundaries can be really helpful. And even just like sharing your feelings can be really cathartic about it, right? Like if you have someone that like gives you that safe space that you're able to be like, yeah, like it really just like I just dread and it makes me uncomfortable when like Uncle Johnny like brings up politics at the table. Like being able to just share like how that makes you uncomfortable can be really helpful and validating, right? And just like some last thoughts is like if the thought of declining conversations at the next gathering or function like causes you some anxiety or stress, like maybe this is something you consider reaching out to our CAPS team or your outside mental health provider for support on this. Like it is a normal thing to feel this way, especially because this is not something that's really taught a lot.
Exactly.
Feel like it's more of the opposite that's kind of taught of like you just like
Yep.
deal with whatever someone says. Um, and so it's a normal way thing to feel this way. And so talking about it can be very impactful and empowering and just to like be able to practice, right? Like and get
Mhm.
validation of like, yeah, like it's not okay when certain things are brought up and it's totally okay that you feel uncomfortable with that. So just want to kind of like leave it on that note, but
Thank you for sharing that. Those are wonderful things to keep in mind to help yourself
yeah,
and definitely reach out to your CAPS team.
yeah, we're awesome, but we're also
Yep.
biased. So, but as
Yes.
we, start to really wrap up here, we want to leave you with a quote, which I was like, oh,
I like this quote a
I
lot.
like this quote. I feel like I need to put this quote up in my office here. Um,
Hmm.
but I found this quote and it says, your boundary is only a problem for those who don't know how to respect you. And I think that really goes along with what we've been talking about.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
it is unknown who came up with this quote. So if you do know, like share that with us because I couldn't
Hmm.
find it. But I think that's a very, if anything, taking away of your uncomfortability around people bringing up certain topics or trying to force conversations. Like your uncomfortability and boundary isn't the problem, it's the person who is insensitive or refuses to acknowledge that other people don't think the same way as them or have the same beliefs, or quote unquote respect you, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Which can be hard.
Oh, yeah. So thankful you chose that one because it can apply to so many parts of life,
Yeah,
especially this one.
yeah.
Yeah,
Again, like we could do a whole series on what this quote kind of like ties into, but
exactly.
for the sake of this one, we won't. Uh, but thank you again to everyone for tuning into this. This is our last podcast episode of 2023, which is crazy. So stay
Uh,
tuned for our first of 2024 in January, which will be on the secret to unlocking the stress cycle.
Ooh,
Um, I don't know about you, but I need the secret of the stress cycle. So I'm
same.
excited to be able to talk about this with you next month. But we hope that you have a wonderful break in whatever way you choose to spend that, whether you celebrate something, whether you don't, whether you are
Hmm.
surrounded by people
Hmm.
that are loved ones or people that you barely tolerate, whatever it means. We hope that at least on the forefront of it, you set boundaries with people and you respect what feels comfortable for you, and
Yes,
don't take people's crap when they try to force you into conversations that only feel good for them.
exactly. And also want to add, remember your inner power.
Mm-hmm.
Remember your inner power. your choice.
Yes.
It's there.
It
It's
is.
always been there.
Yeah. Just tap into it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. But we will see you next month. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.